Hi, Philosophy 102. This is our homework review. Some of you just astonished me and did very, very well with this, and some of you seem to struggle with it. Um, some of the questions I got were a bit confusing to me with regard to formatting. I wasn't sure if you meant formatting for the homework submission or just the format of this new language we're learning. Um, so a few of you did not use the answer key. Um, I did my best to analyze the submissions you made using different letters, but if I don't know what those letters stand for, I can't really tell you whether you got them right or wrong. But with that said, let's start this review. And I think once you see these written out, you'll feel much better about them. Everybody did pretty well. I was surprised because I threw this new language at you without a lot of background. Because the way to learn this is simply by practicing. So this was our practice, and it's okay that you missed some, and it's okay that you struggled with them. There were only 5. Strangely, a lot of you did really well on number 5, which is probably the most difficult, and you seem to struggle more with number 1. So we're going to take notes on the correct structure of the claims for sentential logic or first order logic or whatever you want to call this, because like we said, it has many names. So, oh wow, that seemed way too far in. Let's zoom out and I guess take a look. Okay, that should be close enough for everyone, I hope. Actually, I'm going to pause this and get a better view of this on screen. Okay, hopefully this is enough room for us to write. So, I hope you guys looked at the example, and again, our most recent lecture addresses some of the issues I saw in here, and the way we become familiar with this is just by doing it. So with that said, let's get started. The correct answer for number 1 is going to be, if you want to include parentheses, it's going to be parentheses, not M, close parentheses. Now, if you had something that looked like not M, or if you had that is totally okay. These are the same expressions. You're just you've advanced a step. You understand how parentheses work, and you know they're supposed to be there, but you didn't put them in. That's totally okay. In fact, most of the time I will write it like this. However, I saw some answers that were written like this, and that's a bit confusing. I wouldn't say that's incorrect, but you should start working to make it look like this. Just like with the negative sign, right? Like if I wrote -2, we know what that means because of where the symbol is. Whereas if I wrote 2 minus, you'd be waiting for something else, right? So the placement of it does matter. This is not correct. It's just I understand what you were trying to do, and you basically you understood the question. You just put them in the wrong order. So not a big deal. Just make sure that you put the negation symbol in front of the sentence atom you want to negate. So we can see our key is M equals those creatures are men in suits, and the first sentence we are translating is those creatures are not men in suits. So we just put the negation in front of the claim those creatures are men in suits. So this says not those creatures are men in suits. That's the really technical way to read it. But no big deal there. If you got any version of this, that is fine. And if you wrote it like this, just understand you need the negation in front. I don't think I said that last time, so that's okay. This is a learning process. I've never had to teach this online before, so hopefully you will bear with me as well. It did not occur to me to tell you not to put it over here. Okay, and it didn't occur to me that our example did not have a negation in it. So My bad, but most of you got it. So those of you who struggled with this, you tended to overcomplicate it. I saw some like M negation M answers. The negation is not a sufficient connective for these two. That would say something like, if you wrote this, you would say, those creatures are men in suits, not men in suits. Or not those creatures are men in suits, and that doesn't really work. We don't use the negation symbol to conjoin sentence atoms. It's a little unique. It just modifies the sentence atom itself. So let's get the thing that's not right off the screen and move on to the next one. If you have any further questions about this one, please feel free to email me, but also make sure you watch our most recent lecture, because I think once you see these applied, this system will become much more obvious to you. It's hard to understand a system in parts, because the thing about a system is it works when you put it all together. It's like trying to figure out what a puzzle is of if you don't have the picture on the box, right? So before you get too stressed out, let's make sure we've got the picture on the box, which is what this week's lecture tries to give you guys. Okay, so next one. Those creatures are men in suits, or they are not. This is going to be expressed as, again, with parentheses, M, which is those creatures are men in suits, or, sorry, that was a really big one. Let me try to draw that a bit smaller. Or those creatures are not men in suits. Because again, if you got this first one correct, if you understood that those creatures are not men in suits should be expressed one of these two ways, maybe I should put a slash between them of a different color. So, wait, that is not, why didn't it do it? I thought I changed my pen color. Come on, you. Okay. There we go. So, those creatures are men in suits, or, sorry, I didn't realize that you guys would be able to see me changing my pen colors back. Those creatures are men in suits is symbolized, we can see up here, just by the letter M. We know that this symbol means or, and if you got the first one correct, you already know how to say those creatures are not men in suits. So we're just going to write that out in logical form. If you did this without the parentheses, that's also fine. If you started involving chimpanzees or gorillas or something, unnecessary. So these two, 1 and 2, are dependent on each other, right? We can understand this latter part of the claim as simply being whatever this was up here. I don't know how to explain that much further. Hopefully that answers all your questions. Some people did struggle with M, or not with M, with number 2. I saw some people just put M or, and then they didn't put anything here. I'm assuming that's because they didn't know how to translate this claim. This is in just common English, so it is a bit difficult, right? Or they are not. Well, or they are not what? Let's complete the sentence. Or they are not men in suits, right? So we've got that right here. And I can understand how that would be a bit difficult. I will not confront you with English sentences very frequently. In fact, it's if you can take us through this whole process, it will get you 10 points of extra credit on the final exam. So the ability to correctly take an English sentence like this, well, a whole argument written in English sentences like this, and convert it to logical form, and then analyze that logical form, which is what we learned to do this week, is worth quite a bit. So if you're struggling, this is worth learning, but understand that most of the time when we're working with sentential logic, we're going to be looking at something that looks like this right here. Okay, so if you didn't know what to do there, just understand or they are not. we can finish the sentence and understand it as the same as number 1. Okay, let's get rid of that. All right, number 3. Those creatures are either gorillas or chimpanzees. Almost everyone got this correct. We can look up here at our key and see those creatures are gorillas. And we can look right down here. Those creatures are gorillas. And then we see the or. And here, for some reason, we didn't need the whole sentence. We could infer that we needed to use the letter C. Those creatures are chimpanzees. So this is the correct answer. Again, if you wrote just G or C, that's fine too. If you didn't use the parentheses, no big deal there. Okay, so but in a perfect world, we'd use the parentheses. And again, if you struggled with number 2 and you're not quite understanding my explanation, but you got number 3 correct, you're using that same part of your brain. You are completing the sentence. You're seeing that we can turn those creatures are gorillas or those creatures are chimpanzees very easily into sentence number 3. You can just drop these claims right in there. Okay, let's move on because I really, very few people miss number 3. Number 4, those creatures are neither the gorillas nor chimpanzees. Now, this one has several different correct answers. The way I would like to see it written is as follows. Those creatures are neither, oh my goodness, in my notes I wrote it backwards. Sorry. Neither gorillas, what is that? Neither gorillas nor chimpanzees. And then we close the parentheses. Here we need the parentheses to group this together and make sure that the negation acts on the entire claim, right? If you wrote something like not G or C, you've only negated the G. The negation attaches onto that. So this would be incorrect. I didn't see a whole lot of people doing that, though, so I'm not too worried about that. I just want to express that here we really do need the parentheses. There is a way, however, to write this without the parentheses. So if you had written not, so irritating, not G or not C, this is also correct. These say the exact same thing. The parentheses just allow you to put the negation once, so you don't have to make sure you're negating both. And once we start analyzing these claims, it's going to be a lot easier to work with the single negation rather than with the double negation. I explained in the truth table lecture that when you see a negation, you just flip the truth value. So you'd be flipping the truth value twice here, whereas this version just allows you to analyze this claim, get what you're looking for, and then flip it. That's easier for me. If this is easier for you, that is absolutely okay. But get used to seeing it this way because it's a bit more concise. So both of these are correct. Both of these are fine. If you put this in parentheses, that is also completely fine. You're understanding parentheses, you're understanding everything. You just didn't make the leap to putting the negation outside the parentheses, and that is completely okay. So I'm going to get rid of that and move on to number 5. This is far and away the hardest, but most everyone got it correct. I hope you don't mind if I write it down here in this space. So instead of out to the side right there. So those creatures are chimpanzees. If those creatures are chimpanzees, then they are neither gorillas nor men in suits. This is going to be, and we need parentheses here, maybe not right here. So C entails, sometimes we say entails. So if C, then, and we've got a compound claim here. And again, we're just going to grab this claim, right? Pi. Negate it, because that's what we're grabbing. We're grabbing the whole thing. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. We're not grabbing the whole thing because it's men in suits. Oops. But it's the same principle, right? So if you got your negation out front here, we should translate then they are neither gorillas nor men in suits very easily. So in a perfect world, the negation is out here. And also I closed my second set of parentheses. So this is the perfect answer. This is exactly what I'm looking for. And we can see, let's review the sentence again. If those creatures are chimpanzees, this says if those creatures are chimpanzees, we find the comma, everything that follows, then they are neither gorillas nor men in suits. We can see that that includes two things, right? Gorillas and men in suits. If we did any of these correctly, we should be able to drop that or in there very easily, and our negation can go wherever, but we need to make sure it attaches correctly. So this is a perfect example. You might have done it without these external parentheses. So you might have written something like, oh my goodness, C arrow, not parentheses, because we do need that to attach right there, G or M, close parentheses. This is fine too. You've just left out the outside parentheses. Philosophers do this all the time. Mathematicians do this all the time. Again, technically, you know, when you write like 2 plus 2, that's the same expression. We just, if it doesn't contain an internal compound expression, we don't write it. We generally only, you know, do it when we have something hanging out front. So you can see very easily how mathematically this looks very, very similar. So again, the parentheses work effectively the same way they do in math, and if you don't want to include them in these simpler claims, I'm not going to be upset with you. However, they are necessary here. With that said, there is yet another way we could express this, and I'm going to try to do it in the available space. So if those creatures are chimpanzees is going to stay the same, then they are neither gorillas nor men in suits. So I suppose if you did this, you could avoid parentheses entirely, but it's kind of like order of operations in math. I'm forcing you, like somebody is forcing you then to figure out what you need to do first. And it's not technically correct, although this one's not technically correct either because it doesn't have these guys. But you could express it this way, which means that if you expressed it in this way as well, that is also correct. That's a really ugly arrow. Okay. So these are both equally correct. You're just doing, again, the extra work of adding two negations in here, but they both say the same thing. This says, if those creatures are chimpanzees, then they are neither gorillas nor men in suits. This one says, if those creatures are chimpanzees, then they are not gorillas, or they are not men in suits. Same thing. We're saying the exact same thing. These are equivalent statements, so both are equally correct. I would prefer to see it in the first version, but again, that's just because it's easier when evaluating these to drop down from the single negation and do your flipping at that point. But if you, on the final exam, you put either of these, that's fine. Don't beat yourself up if you put either of these. They're both totally, completely correct. You're understanding how the negation works, you're understanding how it attaches to sentence letters, you're understanding how the connectives connect sentence letters. You're doing it perfect. So some quick general notes, if I may. Let's get back to our original thing. So if we look at this, we'll notice every sentence letter is connected to whatever comes next with a logical connective, right? We can never say, for example, that doesn't say anything. If you want to say those creatures are men in suits and those creatures are gorillas, you're gonna have to connect it with a connective, because that literally means and. If you want to say those creatures are men in suits or they are chimpanzees, right? We're going to say M or C. If you just said MC, again, this wouldn't make any sense. This is not a well-formed formula. We call them whiffs in logic, which is kind of funny. But this is not an expression. This isn't saying anything. This, however, well, even more so now, is a well-formed formula. This is saying something. I can read and analyze this. I know what I'm using because my logical connective is in the correct place between my sentence atoms. Again, a quick note, we can just use this one. Our negations go out front, so those creatures are men in suits. Not, right? False. No. This goes out in front. This never connects things. So I saw a few people answer something like, I think I already addressed this, but M, not M. This does not suffice to connect these two propositions. It would be acting on this one. These two would go together, but I'm still going to need a logical connective in here. So one thing you could say is those creatures are men in suits, or they are not men in suits, which again is exactly what we've said right here. We just have a logical connective connecting these two things. So the negation marries on to whatever sentence atom follows it, and these are individualistic, right? These are our sentence atoms. And then we have a logical connective. I'm going to fill that in because it looks kind of weird with the V. We have a logical connective connecting these two individual parts. We're always going to have one. We might have a conjoined thing, right? We might have a compound claim that's being connected by our or, but it's always going to be in there. We're never going to be absent this. So I hope this helped. Again, this is kind of just something you have to look at and get used to looking at, and pretty soon it'll be the same as 2 plus 2 equals, right? If you saw that, you would immediately know what to do. I wouldn't even have to put a blank here, right? You just know that you put 4 in there. You're just interpreting symbols and their relationships to the numbers around them. Here we're interpreting symbols and their relationships to the sentence atoms or the claims around them. So hopefully this helps you out. I tried to make it short enough that you could rewatch it pretty easily if you're still really struggling with this, but if you're still just not getting this at all, you need to let me know, because the next section relies pretty heavily on it. So go ahead and watch this week's lecture, so you get the full picture, you get a little more aware of it. And if you're still struggling with this, reach out to me, send me an email, and we can talk about any questions you have about these, or any future logical claims, symbolic claims, that we use in lessons. So, or again, if you just want me to give you a series of sentences and you can try them out, you can try evaluating them out, that is absolutely fine. I would be more than happy to do that. I can make sentences like this all day. So, or you can try to make sentences for yourself, but we can do lots of these. Again, please use the key if I provide one. I want you to imagine how doing review would have been if you had done like A, B, and C, and then another student had done X, Y, and Z. Although my Y kind of just looks like another X. And then another student had done X, A, and D, right? I can't look at these and tell what they represent. I can't tell what these variables, what these sentence atoms here are representing. We've got to use the key so that when we do review, it's saying the same thing to everyone. So everybody's homework looks roughly the same. Thank you guys for participating in this with me. I promise this is the coolest thing in the world once you understand it. It's like, I don't know, like when you beat a video game and it gives you the option to play it with a special unlocked, like, atomic bomb or something. Like you get this like weapon that makes you undefeatable. Um, and you just crush. You can do a run through of the game in like, I don't know, 15 minutes. And it's really fun because you're just smashing everything with this incredible tool that you've gotten, that you've unlocked. Once you understand logic, that's life. It's like playing life on easy mode, or like playing life with that crazy overpowered weapon that you get at the end of a video game. So I want you guys to understand this. I want you to love this. And if you're hating it, tell me, and I will do my best to make sure that you love it as much as I do and you understand what an incredibly powerful tool this is, and you just crush. You crush at life when you get this. Okay, everyone, stay fantastic.